So in the last part, let's just do a super quick demo of how we actually go about sketching in P5.js. So this is a screenshot of the P5.js web editor, and it's a program that runs in your browser and lets you edit your JavaScript code using the P5.js framework, run the results, see errors, save and share your sketches. There's lots of functionality. It's extremely useful for us in the unit because it lets you just share a link to your sketch, and then we can see what the problem might be and then give you feedback on that. Let's go through the parts of the interface. So firstly, you'll see up here there's a little arrow. That's where you can run the sketch. Over on the right hand side there's that sign up link. That's probably the first thing you should do, is just sign up for an account so you can save your sketches. The stop button here stops the sketch that's already running. The area here with the code written in it, that's where you actually write your sketch code. Any errors that happen get put here. And then over on the right hand side of the page is where the output from the sketch gets shown. I'm actually in the P5.js web editor here, and it looks a bit different just because I've got a dark theme turned on. It's just a high contrast theme that's a little bit easier to read. Let's make it a bit bigger. So when you first create a sketch, you'll see two functions, function setup and the function draw. And these are the sort of standard functions that P5.js uses. Setup creates the drawing canvas that you'll draw onto. Any other resources you need can get set up there. That's run once right at the start. And then the draw function is kind of like an animation frame that gets drawn every time until the sketch stops. So in this case, we're creating a canvas that's 400 pixels wide, 400 high, and then in the draw loop, we're filling it with a grey background. That's what the 220 means there. If I press the run arrow, you'll see the output. So there's that canvas that we created. It's a square because it's 400 by 400. If I change one of these to 200, the square will get narrower. We can also do things like draw circles. Let me draw this at 100 across, 100 in the x direction, and 100 down. And I'll make it 200 in diameter. So I get a circle right up in the top of the canvas there. So this is how we actually kind of create images in P5.js, is by calling these functions that it defines for us. So there's lots and lots of them, and you'll get introduced to quite a few of them in the first tutorial. Another one is line. So I can draw a line from the top left, which is 0, 0, all the way down to the bottom right, which is at the whole width of the page and at the whole height of the page. So there I have a line. And the order matters here. So if I drew the line first before the circle, then it would be behind it. Okay, so that's a basic idea of how it works. And if you actually make a mistake, like if I spell the circle wrong and run the sketch, I get the error down here in the bottom. So this often gives you a clue as to what's gone wrong in your sketch. One other thing just to note is up here at the top, I've put a comment. So if you want to put any text that explains how your code works, you can put these two forward slashes at the start of the line. This is a quick demo. And that will be kind of human explanation of what the code is doing. JavaScript just ignores that totally. So we normally put a comment right at the top that says who wrote the code, any attributions, and what it does. So we expect that in your assignments. This idea of sketching that I mentioned, you'll notice that by default you get this kind of funny name here. This one's called uneven list. So it just makes up two random words and puts them together. And the idea there is that you don't have to think a lot before you jump in and start trying something out with code. But I might want to rename this to quick demo. So you can name your sketches and then you can save them as well. So if I save the sketch here, it'll be saved on the P5JS editor website. If I want to open up a sketch, I can just open it up and I can see my collection of sketches that I've made. I've made lots over the years. So remember I said that one of the key ideas of sketching is making rapid iterative versions. So here if I go to File and Duplicate, it'll just create a copy. So anytime you want to try out a different idea or do a little bit more work, just create a copy and maybe just call it Quick Demo 1 or something that makes sense to you rather than copy, 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 copy. But this lets you sort of change the circle for a square, see if that works. If it doesn't, just leave the copy, right? Go back to your original and try something else. But I really recommend that rather than keeping working in the original the whole way, because often what happens is you try something out and then the code breaks and it can be really difficult to get back to something that was working. So there's that default sketch that we looked at. There's drawing a circle and a line. And this is what I would call the world's simplest drawing program. So you'll see this in the first tutorial. Basically, we have the same sort of setup and draw structure, but in the draw we just check, is the mouse pressed? And if it is, and only if it is, then we'll draw a circle or an ellipse in this case. So anytime the user moves their mouse around on the screen and with the mouse button pressed, it will draw. Here's one that's slightly more active if we're thinking about that active drawing brief. Here we don't just draw circles, but we store those points in an array, and you'll find out about that in the second tutorial. And each time through the draw loop, we jiggle them around so they move around randomly on the screen, so it becomes a little bit more active. All right, so the last question for this lecture today is, what do you plan to use your creative coding skills for? I'd love to hear what ideas you have about how you could use creative coding in your design or art practice or in your career. Put them on the forum or on Slack and I'll jump in and have a read. So in conclusion, we've covered why it's important for designers to code. We've looked at sketching in code, which is how we learn in dxb211. And I want you to hang on to that idea of asking what-if questions. That can be a really productive way of getting unstuck if you're stuck on the assignment. And we've done a really quick overview of the P5JS web editor, and you'll do more on that in tutorial 1. So for homework, complete the week 1 tutorial activities, sign up for a P5JS web editor account, watch the introduction and the A1 videos, assignment 1 videos if you haven't already, and then look at the P5JS org examples page. There's some great inspiration there. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been lecture 1. We've got another 11 lectures to go or so, look forward to working with you this semester.